The Power Moms Network, empowering moms to lift the world.
Welcome. I'm Rielly Karsh.
I'm Tovah Copan.
We are thrilled to bring you the We Go Boldly podcast.
Let's talk big burning questions, life changes, and maybe a bit of personal business.
Let's be bold and brave together. Are you ready?
I am. Here comes the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Go Boldly, the podcast, where we are thrilled to be a part of the Power Moms Network. At Power Moms Network, we are empowering moms and creating a community of mothers mentoring other moms to greatness. And we love it there. So we encourage you all to check it out. You can sign up for their newsletter. You can join the community. You can do all kinds of things when you check out powermoms.com online. It is a very cool place, and we are thrilled to be members. I am wrestling my cat at the moment, who is desperate to be on the show today. So pardon my, if you're watching us on YouTube, pardon my back and forth here. He is very, very interested in my laptop. So that being said, it is a new season. It is season 11. And I don't know that we have like a title for this season yet, other than to say it is all about unbecoming, and not in the like sense of the word unbecoming, like that's unbecoming of a lady. Well, maybe a little bit.
Oh yeah, I think so actually.
But it's about undoing all the like damaging things, right? Like letting them go. Before we get too far into the weeds of that, let me say hello to my fantastic co-host Tovah. I suspect I'm going to ask you how you're doing today, and I suspect, much like me, you're a little frazzled. How is today going?
Today is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few times that you ask me to do something that I say no.
Mm-hmm.
And this morning, because I try to prioritize us and our business and your requests. And today you sent me an email or a text, and you're like, so I need you to take a look at this. And I was like, no, my plate is full. Today, the plate is full.
Mm-hmm.
It is overflowing with both tasks and emotional lifts. So yeah, that's where we are. That's where we are.
So interestingly, let's talk about that a little bit, because this is a part of the unbecoming, right? So one, yay, boundaries. Two, we talked about this before, but I wanna just raise it up again, because it's something we really need to undo. I've been talking about this with my husband a lot. We don't need to immediately respond to everyone who reaches out to us, or do everything that people ask us to do within like 5 seconds of them asking us to do it. And we don't need to read into things to think that that's what people are expecting either, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important in the unbecoming process that we start to look at these reactions we have to things. I am certainly guilty of this. Like I do it all the time, where I'm like, oh my God, I have to respond right now. And we talked about this with a guest, and I'm blanking. Tovah, help me. Who talked about this with us? Oh no. I'll let you think about it while I say we talked about this with a guest, and she was great in talking to us about, specifically with respect to lawyers, but it applies across professions and personal lives and all that stuff, about turning things off, turning off the notifications, turning off the like instant pinging and dinging in your life that tells you, oh, I have to respond to this, or oh, this has to be immediate and I have to do this right now. And being willing to think through, like, does this person really want this right now? Is that really what's happening? And I think it's hard for us to do that as a culture. And so we're going to get into all the unbecoming of it all. But like, I just wanted, because you mentioned that, and I wanted to raise it, because I think it's important to know, one, that we still struggle with this, both of us.
Well, yeah. And not to interrupt, but like the thing that we're doing, that you said, hey, I need you to do this. Like, it's something I'm really excited to do.
Yeah.
But like the number of things that need to be done in my life today, is significant in preparation for meetings that are going to happen over the next 2 days. And like they have to be done. They have to be done well. We're talking like interviews, mid-year reviews, like significant things that have to be done. We're recording another podcast tomorrow that I have to write the outline for. Like there are big things that have to get done in preparation for tomorrow, like tomorrow to exist. And so I started to panic and be like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. Recognizing that like you're going on vacation and I'm trying to make sure that I do this so that you can feel like, because I know that this is a task, and I think there is part of the unbecoming that I know we're going to talk about is I am putting things on my shoulders and carrying things that I don't need to and shouldn't be carrying. Like yes, you have a to-do list that you want to get things done before vacation, but I can say to you, which is what I said, I cannot do this today. I can do it tomorrow afternoon. Like I will have time tomorrow afternoon. So hopefully what that enabled you to do was like table it like mentally at least a little for yourself.
Not at all. Not even a little bit. But also
you're not looking for my response.
Right. But that also brings up this whole conversation of the unbecoming of it all, because like it would be great if I could table it. Right. But like this is on my list and it needs to get done and it has to get done before I go on vacation, because I cannot do it while I'm like, I just can't physically do it while I'm on vacation. And so this is, I want to get into the definitions and all that stuff because we're getting like too far into the weeds, but like this is an important conversation because even you and I who have spent like, I don't know, forever on personal development and therapy and like undoing all the crap that holds us back. Like this is still the back and forth we have to go through to like work through it. The good news is we know each other well enough to be like, it's not about you. Right. Like it's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about the other person.
Also to know myself well enough that if I wouldn't have set that boundary with myself, I would do this. Like, so there's a lot of emotional stuff happening too. Like, it's not just like I said goodbye to a good friend who's moving today. I said, my kids are going on vacation today with their dad. I will see them intermittently, but not like they're not going to be staying overnight in my home until like 12 days from now. Like there's a lot of emotional things, which means I know I cannot let myself stay up very late tonight because I'm going to need sleep.
Yeah.
And so I tend to rely on old habits, bad habits when I'm feeling frazzled. And so there's a variety of things that are happening today. And I know that what I want to do is ignore all of those things and engage with what you and I are working on.
Right.
And if I didn't set this boundary with myself and say, no, I cannot work on this today, I would use it as a way to like not do the things that still need to get done. And so they won't be getting done until late tonight, which means I won't be sleeping, which is what I need to be doing to ensure that my mental health is in an okay place to handle the emotional lift.
Yeah.
And so there's a reason I think it is important for us to talk about this, rather than just jumping in, because this is a big season. And I feel like this season is the podcast. Like this is what our podcast is about.
Yeah.
We just haven't been ready to have this conversation
not in the way that we're about to. So let's talk about sort of where we're starting, right? So our season is about unbecoming. And I found this quote by Paulo Coelho, whose name I can never pronounce. I'm sorry, I'm butchering it. It's me, I'm the problem. But the quote is, maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything. Maybe it's unbecoming everything that isn't you, so you can be who you were meant to be in the first place. And that is the entire season, right? Like that is what we're talking about. So when we talk about unbecoming, we're talking about undoing like the negative things we've learned in our lives, but beyond that, like the undoing the like unhealthy coping skills, like you're talking about, Tovah, undoing the harm that other people did to us, in the sense of like you can't change the past. The past is the past. You can't take it back, but you can change the way you react to things that maybe you learned to react in a certain way because of trauma or because of negative things other people were doing. So we don't want to appease. We don't want to fit in. We don't want to just survive. We talked about that in our last little mini season. We want to enjoy our lives. We want to belong. We want to feel good. We want to meet our own expectations, but have those expectations make sense and be reasonable. We don't want to focus on somebody else's standards or somebody else's thoughts about who and how and what we should be. And so we are unbecoming all of those things that have been like an albatross, weighing us down. We don't have to be whatever we've been in the past. You don't have to stay that same person. You don't have to have the same reactions. You don't have to do the unhealthy thing. Right. And I met with my nutritionist right before this and talking to her about like, skipping breakfast all the time and like, well, but you don't have to keep doing that. Like, you can eat breakfast. Like, you don't, just because that's how you've been for however long doesn't mean it's how you have to stay.
Yeah.
So there's really like three parts to the season. And the first half is the healing and the undoing of it all, like the taking apart each aspect. I mean, we're not going to get into every aspect because that would take years. But taking apart as many aspects as we can of our paths and starting the healing process of those. And then we're going to go into what it means to be present, how to be intentional, because a big part of undoing and unbecoming is being present and not living as if you were the same person you were yesterday, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And then finally, we're going to talk about being who you are on purpose and living with purpose. So that's kind of the way this season is going to unfold. Obviously, today is our like introductory whatever episode, and we have a real-time experience that we are both working through of things that we both want to sort of unbecome, in our own lives. So lucky you get to hear all about it.
Yeah. And, I think too, like unbecoming for both of us, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are uprooting anything. I mean, I actually think visually it does mean you're uprooting a lot, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily like, changing your jobs and changing your lives and changing all of that. But it is doing those conversations with yourself of like, wait, why do I feel the need? Like you talked about in the last episode, like, why do you feel the need to clean your house before you leave on vacation? Right. And I also feel the need to clean the house before I leave on vacation. And some of it is because when I come back, I want the house to be settled. I want to come into a place that's like calm and not chaos. But then there's also this extra layer of like, if something happens, I want the house to be organized. And I've had to deal with this a lot over the last year because I didn't have time between finding out I needed like surgery for like when I was gonna have surgery and my surgery, and people were gonna be living with me and staying with me to help to like clean the house and get everything together. And like, I would have like baked for them and had stuff organized. And like and I think you and I were like talking about it, and you're like, people do not expect when you're having essentially emergency surgery to have the house. But I was like, no, but I want to. And it was like, okay, but how much do you want to, and how much are you expecting yourself to? And how much are those expectations coming from shoulds and judgments and societal expectations that you're putting on yourself from outside? And I will tell you, from the perspective of a Cancer who is super into like coziness and homemaking, it is very confusing. But then there's also like, I like a clean house in case something happens. And then I was traveling for work and something did happen, right? My radiators all leaked and someone had to come into my house. And there was like, so, I think it's really, we're not saying that you shouldn't want to have a clean house when you go on vacation. If that's your jam. I think it's more like taking that time to figure out why. And taking those layers off to feel like, okay, is the Tova that like popped out, like, does she care about having a clean house? Or has society just told her 98 different ways that this is what you need?
Yeah. Well, I think so going along with the clean house example, like there is I feel like culturally there is a lot of morality put on
Yeah.
cleanliness, right? And I'm not suggesting that like unsanitary living standards is a good thing. It's not, right? Like that's a health issue though. Um but everybody's clean is different. Like everybody's sense of what's organized is different, right? And so when you think about this example, if you are the person who's frantically cleaning because people are coming over and you don't want them to judge you, like
Yeah.
that's the part where we want to undo some things, right? If you are frantically cleaning because, like me, clutter triggers your depression and makes you miserable, that's
Yeah.
a very different sort of thing. And it doesn't trigger my depression because I'm worried about what other people are going to think about me. It's because I literally cannot focus. Like I can't, like if there's clutter everywhere, all I see is the clutter. I can't see anything else. And that's, my own mental health issues, but like it's not an unbecoming issue. It's a, maybe I'll work on it in therapy, but like there's bigger fish to fry. So the point of all that, of course, is like the why of it, right? The why are you feeling this way? Why are you thinking this way? Why are you doing the things you're doing? Why did you build your walls the way you built them, right? Because
Mhm.
we've all built walls. We all have them. And I don't know that that's a bad thing. Like it's okay to have some walls. It's okay to protect yourself in certain ways. It's when your walls are unscalable and don't make sense and they're like the Winchester house in San Francisco where there's like stairways to nowhere, right? Like
Yeah.
that's where you find yourself like, okay, well, what's the point of all this? Like, what am I trying to accomplish here? Um,
Well, I think, we'll talk about this more, but you and I have said it as we were developing this season, because we have taken a long time to talk about this season.
mhm.
Um, we all have stories that we tell ourselves. And a lot of times those stories, we view them as fact, and they really are fictions that we've made up or that other people have told us that were fictions, that we believe them to be fact. Like you have been told, as you have told us over and over and over, that you are a serious person. And I mean, listen, I've spent a lot of time with you, and I think maybe you just have a serious face or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I would not list you as like more serious than anybody else I know. Like
right.
you're, I don't know. Like,
I
I
don't
mean,
know if it's like that my mouth turns down when I'm like my face is relaxed,
so
right? Like
almost
there's
everybody's like, as someone who had to do sorority rush, what I can tell
okay.
you statistically is that almost anyone who is not actively smiling is frowning.
It's just my
It's
face,
no, it's
people.
just everybody's face. Like, unless you are actively smiling, almost everybody's face is frowning. It is how
It's
it's
the
how faces,
muscles.
it's how faces
It's how the
work.
muscles work.
Yeah. So, I don't know who, like, so you have this story though
Yeah,
that has been told to you as fact,
absolutely.
and it's somebody else's fiction. And so that's a lot of what we're talking about when it's like healing these ideas and these stories that we have been told about ourselves that are facts, that aren't facts.
Right. That we
um
believe are like the truth, right? As if there is the truth.
right.
And in
Right.
fact, they're just somebody's opinions that we decided to believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes those opinions are people that we love and that we trust, and they're telling it because they think it's for our best and because they believe it to be fact. And so these are not all situations where people are out harming us.
Yeah.
And in most
No, that's
cases,
a really good point.
I
Yeah.
think most cases they aren't actually. And I, not to belabor this cleaning concept, but you brought this idea about hygiene, and I want to point something out, and because you brought this idea of hygiene and cleanliness. Just because last week, once again, the fact that like Brad Pitt apparently smells. I do not know this to be true. I've never been close enough to know whether he smells or not. So this is purely hearsay.
Sure.
Came up again. But like white people have the liberty to not be as hygienic and cleanly than anybody else, because there is like a default presumption that white people are clean, and it is a presumption that other that a Black person or a brown person does not have. And so you will generally find, and this is a massive, incredibly massive generalization, that in general, I mean, I've said it so many times just so you get my point. This is not a person, but not, I don't want to get someone emailing me like, well, I'm very clean. Like, I don't care. That like, from what I have gathered, Black women specifically tend to have significantly better, like not better, but like as a group care about the cleanliness and hygiene to a higher standard than white women, because they have to, because there is such an expectation, maybe not better, but like there's just this expectation that they will, because that is the story that they have been told, that if they don't, it is going to prove a white person's theory that they are dirtier. In that case, that is like not what we're talking about, right? Like that is like actually protecting somebody from like horrible systemic and actual racism. Like, so that's not what we're talking about in this specific case. No. So what we're talking about is a lot of times when people are just being told things where, people are just doing the best they can, and they're being told things, and they're trying to be like, well, you have to sit up. You can't slouch. You just have to sit up. So people who slouch, no one's going to take them seriously. Like no one takes the sloucher seriously. And then, somebody just likes to be comfortable and slouch. And like, they assume that they're like never going to be taken seriously their whole life. Like, yeah, that's the kind of story that we're thinking in our head. I just wanted to like clarify, because I don't know, just because of that whole recent conversation about, dirty celebrities, frankly.
When I was talking about hygiene, I was talking about like space hygiene, not personal hygiene, but just to further clarify,
fair enough.
Like, please clean your toilets. I don't know. That's what I was thinking of. Okay, so we do need to take a quick break. Why don't we do that? When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about like each step of the season, and then we'll move on from there. So we will be right back after this break, everyone. Well, hey there, dream chaser. Are you ready to make the next 12 months of your life unforgettable? Introducing the Year of You, a groundbreaking new goal system group that's about to redefine the way we approach personal growth. Join us with a community of like-minded individuals committed to unlocking their full potential. With expert guidance, personalized strategies, kind-hearted accountability, and a supportive network, the Year of You is more than just a goal-setting group. It's a whole movement. Don't just dream about it, achieve it. Click in the link in our show notes, or go ahead and visit us at goboldlyinitiative.com/Year of You to learn more today. Let's embark on a transformative journey together towards becoming the best versions we can be. The Year of You, where your goals become reality. Okay, welcome back to the show. So before the break, we kind of got into the weeds of what the whole season is going to be about. This first part of the season is all, as I said, is all about like healing, letting go, undoing, unbecoming, all those unwords. And how we do that, what we need to even think about letting go of, kind of like what's involved in any of that. We're going to be talking about the past. We're going to be talking about trauma. We're going to talk about inner child work and shadow work, which I know is not Tovah's favorite. I can see her face right now. We're going to talk about like social and personal expectations and what those look like and why are we holding on to them, right? All of those things are the undoing of it all. I did do a little bit of research for this episode, even though it's like our intro episode, and found some interesting studies on inner child and shadow work because I know that's going to be such a tough episode in general for us to talk about for a variety of reasons, and we'll get into that then. But I think it was interesting to see like scientific research being done around this, and what I read is from like a couple of clinical psychologists, a couple of neurologists, people who really like got into the science behind all of this concept. And a couple things they said were like inner child work helps to remind ourselves that we're not wrong or bad and heal the shame that comes with just having feelings, like shame around feelings in general,
Hmm.
which I personally can relate to. And then there's a neuroscientist who previously, this is a quote that I pulled, is previously explained that in order to become the best version of yourself, you need to know what the bad bits are that are holding you back or are hidden. And that's where the shadow work comes in. And the point of all of this is to say that we are not black and white, right? Nobody is all good and all bad. Like that's, I mean, Hitler, yeah, all bad. But like for the most part, nobody is all or nothing. That's not how the world works, right? We're all in the gray areas. And shadow work particularly is about examining those parts of yourself that you would attribute some moral value judgment to, right? Like you'd be like, that's bad. I'm bad because I blah, blah, blah. And the shadow work aspect is letting go of that moral judgment and that shame that you put on yourself because of those parts of you. Now, maybe there's some things you want to change about yourself. That's fine. Like I want to change things about myself. I want to eat breakfast every day. Like I really do.
Yeah.
Um, and that is not like I'm not going to shame myself about it, right? Like I want to change it. Cool. It's not the best aspect of my personality. It's just not. And that's all okay. That's shadow work is like looking, that's a sort of superficial example, but like you can look into deeper ones where it's, like I am very reactive to certain behaviors in my son because it reminds me of my parents, right?
So I'm just going to interrupt you for a second because I think we're going to have a lot of times where we're going to like diminish things and be like, well, that feels superficial. If you ate breakfast every day, you would be happier. Like
Mm,
your blood sugar would stabilize. You would be
hmm.
really proud of yourself. Like you would feel like your nutritionist would be giving you high fives through the Zoom. Like good things would be happening. You'd be like, I can set other goals now. Like
Right.
we are not going to diminish anything. So like, and I know that's not what you were really doing, but I'm also going to say like, I think that we should always be careful. Like if it's a
Yeah.
goal, like let's set like
Yeah, I think what I was trying to distinguish is, am I morally judging myself for not eating breakfast? No, I'm not like I'm a bad person because I don't eat breakfast. But there are things where I'm like, ooh, that's not that I'm kind of bad because of that, right? Like
I mean,
there
I
are
morally judge
things
myself for a lot of things. Yeah.
there are a lot of things I do that with as well. For whatever bizarre reason, I am completely blanking right now because I would like to give an example, but they're obviously I'm perfect. So no, there's stuff in there where
I
I'm
mean,
like,
listen, how
oh,
late my kids stay up, the amount of time they spend on their screens,
oh yeah,
the
the screens one.
inconsistent breakfast, the fact that they don't make their own breakfasts, the fact that sometimes they do make their own breakfast, the fact that my kids don't make their own lunches, the fact that they don't have the same responsibilities every week, the fact that like or chores, the fact that they want the chores but they fight the chores.
Yeah.
We it can keep going. I can keep going with more things I judge myself
So
morally on.
and I think that that's the point, right? Like is we're calling ourselves bad because of X, Y, and Z, right? And so shadow work allows you to look at that with like a more objective lens to address like, is this a moral dilemma? No. Would I like to change it? Sure. But is
Yeah.
this something I'm going to feel shame and judgment about?
So I am excited. I say two things. Yes, I bristle at the inner child of it all, not because I bristle at inner children. Um, the 90s were a big time for inner children.
Yeah.
And they were 90s were also a big time for Oprah, who I love,
Mm-hmm.
but also like the beginning of things like Dr. Phil, and like Dr. Oz and like that whole world of like Riley's face is amazing. But like,
I have big feelings there.
yeah, like these other people that doctor feels such like a over, like it would be like if I called myself doctor,
I'm a
right?
doctor.
Like,
I'm a doctor of law, just like you. So
I
I guess we're
mean,
doctors.
Dr. Tova and Dr. Riley. Um, so I have feelings about them, and I just feel like inner child was like as a child, while all these people were like actively like caring for their inner children,
Yeah.
and like there was this whole generation of latchkey kids just like chilling and being like, hey, how's it going? So anyway, I have feelings, but
Yeah.
I'm excited to do the inner child work. Like, and I enjoy, honestly, sometimes when I'll be doing Reiki and like my Reiki person will be like, oh, your inner child, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, that tracks. Like, it always feels good. Also, speaking of Oprah, thanks to Oprah, I went on this deep dive on Amazon looking at her journals. I always get sucked in by her emails when it's like, my journal is on sale. And then I never pull the trigger. Bad phrasing, but
Oh,
like
I hate that one. That one sneaks up on me too.
I never grab it. But then I stumbled upon this. I can't believe I didn't send it to you. I don't send you as much on the weekends, and that's what happened.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But like the shadow work journal is apparently a TikTok sensation. Sensation. And it is 1 million copies have sold. And I bought it because sensation on TikTok.
Right. Yeah.
So it is, I'll send it to you and I'll share it with all the listeners here.
Yeah.
It is a shadow work journal, a guide to integrate and transcend your shadows. I got the new and expanded edition. I'm looking for a guided journal because I want to engage in more journaling.
Yep.
And right now my journal would just be like a brain dump of like God knows what would come out.
I feel like mine would just become a to-do list and a grocery list. And then you'd be like, how do you have those both in the same place? And it would devolve from there.
I mean, mine would be like, why? Like it would
yeah, just trailing off, just a lot of whys.
dot, dot, dot.
Yeah.
What's next? Dot, dot, dot. So I feel like a guided journal. So anyway, I grabbed it. I'll share it with you. It's not coming until this weekend because I love those Audible digital dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not coming right away. But I mean, I don't know how the publication date, April 23rd. How fast they sold 1 million. TikTok, man. Holy moly.
TikTok,
but anyway, I will let people know. It's not even Oprah's one. I went
oh,
down
it's a different
hole.
one.
No, I went somewhere else. So Oprah sucks me in and then I buy other people's things. I don't know what happens.
Sorry, Oprah.
But I will I'll let you guys know about it.
Yeah.
When we get to that episode, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear about it.
Yeah, so I think it is interesting because there are times where you will have a reaction, you being anybody who's listening or us, will have a reaction to something and you're like, well, that's a weird, and we've talked about this before, you're like, but that's an interesting reaction, and you're like, oh, well, that was probably teenage me, and that makes sense, like that tracks.
Yep.
And then you back up a little and you're like, okay, all right, now I need to like do a deep dive on what's happening here. Because like, why am I still carrying that with me? And that's kind of, I don't know if we're going to bring back the bucket metaphor. I think this season may be a backpack metaphor.
I think so. Well, it could go both ways, really. Could go either.
We'll see what moves to the front. But somehow we are carrying heavy things that it is time to unburden ourselves.
Yeah, dump out the bucket. So I just want to like talk a little bit about what the middle of the season is going to be about, which I mentioned before, and that's about being more present, being intentional with how you're living your life. A big aspect of that, of course, is the letting go, but also forgiveness, and like not like I don't know how to describe this in the way that I want to. I'm at a loss for words, but it's really more about forgiving yourself than anything else. Like, yes, you want to forgive other people for yourself, frankly. But really it's about you. It's about what do you need to forgive yourself for doing or thinking or saying or being when you didn't know any better, or you didn't have the tools to do anything different, or you didn't have a safe space to be any other way, right? Like acknowledging that maybe a mistake was made and yet you can forgive yourself for that, right? Like all of those things are how you become more present, because what's happening is you're holding on to those things, whether conscious or not, And whether it might be your body holding on to it. It might be your mind, heart, spirit, soul, all of those things can retain the emotion of shame and guilt and judgment and sadness and all of those things that you need to find a way to let go of so that you can live in the today of it all, right?
And I think, you and I both have children who are starting to hit teenage age.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, mine's like disturbingly close to becoming a teenager.
Yeah, I've still got a year and
Yeah,
change, but
I
not that
don't.
much.
I don't.
Yeah.
But he's like hitting his stride as like
Angst.
feeling, yeah, angst. And I remember when I was also he's entering seventh grade, and to me, I went to junior high in seventh grade, so I'm like, whoa, because he's been in middle school for a few years, but seventh grade was big for me because like
Yeah.
I went to junior high, and so this is like the big year for me mentally with him, and I remember seventh grade like really well. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to like remember like, oh, that time I said this, or oh, that time I did this. And I'm looking at him as this like not fully formed person. And like on one hand, he's a very, very fully formed person, like yesterday I got
Yeah.
home from work and he's like, oh, can I go to Don Chicken? And I was like, yeah, go get some chicken, bring your brothers back some chicken. And he was like, okay. And then he called me, he's like, the chicken place is closed, but I ran into these guys, can I get ice cream? And I was like, whatever, sure. Like he's capable of doing these things.
Right.
But on the other hand, he is like very much not a fully formed person. And like anything that he said or did that was, inappropriate, he's learning so much at such a fast rate. Like, why would I still be carrying something that I did at that age?
Yeah.
Like, I would not want him to be carrying something that he did 3 weeks ago.
Nope.
And yet we walk around this world carrying things that we did 30 years ago. That's bananas.
So yes, yeah, all of that. But there's some I'm going to talk a little bit about this, even though we're going to get into it in depth in the specific episodes. But I really found this fascinating research about like tips and tricks for releasing things from the past, so that you can be more present. And one of the studies I read and like articles I read about this was interesting in that it suggested having daily negative thought time, which is the antithesis of all the things we've been told, right? And I found it fascinating because I feel like it would actually work for me. And I've been told not to do it ever, right? And so again, this is the undoing of it all. So it's all very circular here. But this idea, and I'll just read the quote that I pulled. It's a paradoxical strategy to gain control over negative thinking is to commit to 10 minutes a day, ruminating and reviewing them over and over again. Negative thought time must be 10 minutes and must be every day. When you have a negative thought during the day, jot it down and tell yourself that you'll review them during negative thought time. Over time, you will gain control and negative thinking will stop. And I'm going to be honest with you, never in all of my years of therapy, in all of my years of personal development, and that's like decades at this point, have I ever gotten that advice. And I actually think I might try it, because how great would it be to contain that to 10 minutes a day and be like, this is my 10 minutes. I'm going to really like crap on everything, right? Like, and you have your 10 minutes and then you move on, and the next you like write it all down. I mean, it sounds way easier than it probably is.
Well, but I mean, it's the way I view therapy. Like, and I've told my kids, I'm like, it's great to know, like, okay, 1 o'clock on Thursdays, that's when I deal with my stuff.
Yeah.
1 o'clock on Thursdays. And so if you knew, I love this idea, because if you're like, all right, 10 minutes, I'm saving those negative thoughts for
Right.
10
Like
minutes.
you can almost be like excited about it. Like I get my 10 minutes in in an hour, and I'm gonna really like be
Gonna
negative.
really be negative then.
Like
some big
I
plans.
Yeah, yeah. Like I just think it's fascinating, and I'm excited to talk more about it when we get into the letting go and being present. Balancing
Well, but I
act.
also like it because it does encourage you to notice when you're having negative thoughts.
Yeah, and it makes space for negative
tricky.
thoughts,
It's
which
tricky.
I think that we've gone so far down the toxic positivity rabbit hole in the world that like people forget that it's okay to have negative thoughts. Like another story I was told my whole life is that I'm a negative person, and I don't really think I am. I'm neutral in most cases. Like I have my negative days, I have my positive days, and I don't expect the world to be a terrible place, which is what I think negative thought processes is, like that you anticipate that everything's going to be bad
Right.
forever, right? Which is also depression, just as a side note. But like I don't know.
You
What
assume
else.
that every outcome will be negative. That's
Yeah, like
problematic.
that's
That's
not
also
how.
not being realistic. That's
No, not at all.
pessimistic.
No, it's yes, it's not just being somebody who tells it like it is. Um, I think that it is the story I told myself along with being serious is that I'm negative, and I'm not. I'm neither of those things. Well, I mean I can be, but I'm not all the time. Um, so I'm excited to have those conversations. I think it'll be very helpful for me personally. So you're welcome, everyone. Um, I think the other stuff here we can get into, more in depth in the episodes, but it's, you can do replacing your negative thoughts, which works for some people and not for others. And I like this idea as well. You can make a conscious effort to find things to love, like, and appreciate. This is gratitude said in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But if you spend your time looking for something to like and looking for something to be appreciative of, it's much easier to stay in that like joyful, which we need to find another way to say that, full of joy, sort of
I mean,
state of mind.
joyful is my word of the year.
Yeah,
So
it's just not joyful.
yes.
So anyway, I think there's a lot there that we have to talk about, and I just wanted to mention that daily negative thought time because I find it fascinating and I want to do it. We need to take another quick break. Why don't we do that? When we come back, we'll talk about what we're going to talk about for being on purpose, being purpose driven, and then we will let you all go for the week. But we will be right back after this break, everyone.
Hey there, pod family. Have you ever wished you could stay in the loop with a little slice of transformation and inspiration delivered straight to your inbox? Well, you're in luck because now you can. Introducing our fantastic newsletter, your VIP pass to all things exciting and informative. Join our community of growth-minded souls. Get the hottest topics delivered right to your inbox. It's quick, easy, and totally free. Just head over to our website at goboldlyinitiative.com and sign up for our newsletter today. Don't miss out on the next big thing. Stay connected with us. Subscribe now and get ready for some big, bold love.
Okay, so welcome back to the show. Before the break, I promised that I would mention, what we're doing in the whole being purpose driven, being yourself, being on purpose concept. And really it's about living the most honest version of yourself every day, whatever that looks like. If it's a day where you're negative, cool. If it's a day where you're positive, that's okay. Most likely you're all of the things, right? Like I don't know, maybe the balance shifts a little bit towards one or the other, but like, I don't know. It's just not an all or nothing concept.
Well, we just talked last week, right? We just wrapped up last week about our words and find words that would help us find joy and celebration. And we talked about enjoying things and that like I even on the worst 5 days of my life, there was moments of joy, right? Because the goal is not happiness, right? I mean, yeah, yes, it is, but like we want to be happy and content and all this good stuff. But like it's not like nonstop happiness isn't the goal. That would be a lot that's like a sugar rush or something, like never a sugar high. But the goal is to find those moments of joy. And even on, like I said, even on the worst days, there were moments. Like I can think of what I would describe as one of the worst days of my life. And I got a free piece of coffee cake I mean, I took a picture of it and I sent it to friends. Like it will always be in my memories. So there was joy. But I think that likewise, like there will be days that are harder than others, but we can be on purpose every day. Like we can choose how we react to things every day.
Yeah.
We can choose how we show up. And we can choose how much purpose we choose to bring to each day. Right? Like some days our purpose is to get through, right? It's the reason that my planner, and I don't use this at all, but like I should more, but every day it says today's goal. And it really should just be today's purpose. Like how are we driven by each day, right? Like, is it to just like today's purpose is to like get a lot of that to-do list done, but also just to like get through today because there's a big emotional carry today. And like, let's just get through it. Let's just get as many, like there are some must check off boxes that I need to check off and get those checked off and then get to tomorrow. And like, that's what we got to do today. And so there are going to be other days where a lot of times the days are not letting my to-do list be the most important thing of my day and finding those moments of joy with my kids and finding the laughter. Today is not that day. So like, I think that finding purpose in each day or being on purpose each day, depending on how, and we're going to talk kind of about both ways to look at, you know, being on purpose and being purpose driven, which isn't exactly the same thing.
No, there's a comma involved. I think that
There's a comma involved.
there is.
I love it.
Yeah. So being purpose driven, and I just wrote down like, yeah, I like that idea of changing like what's today's goal to what's today's purpose, because it's important to recognize that your purpose changes over time, right? Like it's never gonna, I gotta stop saying never. It's not the same forever, right? Your purpose at 20 is probably not your purpose at 40, at 60, at 80. Just because your life has changed, your circumstances have changed, what you're doing has changed. What I find interesting, and one of the reasons we created our personal mission statement course, and we would encourage you all to sign up and do that, is that having a deep understanding of your core values, because those don't traditionally change, right? Like your values are your values. You might change in that you grow and understand the world better. And so maybe you're like less judgmental, or maybe you're less, phobic of somebody, those things can change, which is great.
Yeah.
But your core values, like what really matters to you, kind of is something that stays. And so understanding that allows you to focus on a purpose, right? It allows you to be like, these are my 5 core values. What kind of purpose aligns with those values, right? Like where does it all mesh? And so that I'm going to live a much more enjoyable life because my purpose is aligning with my personal values, which is then putting me out in the world as an authentic version of myself. And I think it's also important to recognize that authenticity and honesty are different things, right? Living honestly is great, which honesty is the quality of being truthful, right? Like telling the truth. So you want to tell the truth about yourself, but authenticity is not just telling the truth, it's acting the truth. It's acting according to who you are and having your words and behavior align and come together. And that's one of the reasons we want you all to take the time to create a personal mission statement, because then you understand what your values are and you can look at yourself and be like, am I in alignment with my values? Are the words that I'm saying matching the behaviors that I'm taking on, right? And a lot of times the answer is no, right? Like we all get sucked into fitting in and having people like us and doing what everybody else is doing. And it happens to, I don't know anyone who doesn't happen to. And so this is an opportunity to like really like take a look at that and figure out where you can make some changes.
Well, and isn't that like a couple things? Like, so isn't that the hardest thing about adolescence, right? Because you often don't know who you are yet. You just know that things don't feel right. Like Like it's so rare that it feels right. Like, every once in a while you get that moment of passing where you're like, oh, I'm where I should be. But like, you almost don't even know how to identify that feeling yet. So
Yeah.
even that feels weird because you're like, I'm where I should be. This feels weird. Maybe this is the weird feeling. Like, and you're like, I don't know. And then there's also like, so I was just thinking about that, like, because you don't know who you are yet.
Yeah.
And yet you're constantly being inundated with all of this, friends and experiences, and you're trying to compare it against a compass, but the compass doesn't work yet. And it's spinning, or maybe it does work, but you don't know how to read it yet. It's all very confusing.
Yeah.
And like, so I don't know if the compass doesn't work or if you just don't know how to read it yet. Either
yeah,
way,
I think that.
right. But then the other thing is, as we're now adults, you have a better understanding of who you are. But if you're telling yourself the wrong story and you've built a life with the wrong story, and once again, we're not asking anybody to like quit their job or change everything. It can often be a very subtle shift.
Or maybe we are. I mean,
maybe we are.
We might be.
I mean, we might be blowing up our own lives. I don't know. It's hard to say. Riding off into the sunset. But if we are, if we have been telling ourselves a story that's the wrong story the whole time, it's very hard to feel like the purpose that we're following is the right one, or that we're able to live on purpose.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to feel like everything is in alignment.
Yeah. If you're living according to somebody else's opinion of who you are versus who you actually are, because you haven't figured that out yet, then nothing's going to feel right. It's going to be like you're in clothes that don't fit, right? Like it's going to be off. And you're constantly going to be striving to figure out what is off, like what feels wrong, because you're looking at your life and you're going, yeah, but I'm like, if you take me, for example, I'm a serious person, so I should be doing something very serious, like lawyering. It's very serious business. And I'm negative, so I should just be like cranky all the time and grumpy at people and thinking everything's going to fall apart and looking for the worst case scenarios because I'm a lawyer and I'm serious. And you know what? That was like the least happy I've ever been in my life. It's not who I am, and that's okay. And just as a side note to all our lawyer friends, like, I don't think you're negative or too serious. Just that is not the story I'm telling about you. That's what I had in my head. And it turned out to be somebody else's story and somebody else's opinion. And I had to like reconfigure how I was looking at myself from the inside out. And that takes a lot of work, and I'm just going to toot my own horn, a lot of courage to be able to just look at yourself and be like, whoa, that's not right.
I mean, and we also saw, like, using me as an example, like the story I was telling myself about what it means to be adventurous.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that already. Yeah.
That was bananas.
That one was one of the wilder ones because I don't even know how it happened. Like I can picture how what happened with me happened, but like I cannot like visualize this happening to you.
Right. But this is what we're saying. Like, I had a story. I told myself a story that I was not adventurous.
Right. Which somebody probably put in your head at some point.
But I believed it. And this is what we're saying. It is a fiction. And someone may have told me it may have been something like, if you've seen Inside Out, and anxiety is like, I'm just trying to protect you. Like, maybe I put it in my head. Right.
Maybe it was like a safety.
Yeah. Like who knows? Or once again, I clearly had at some point a weird definition of anxiety, of adventure. Also probably anxiety, but of adventure.
Yeah.
And like I had a definition of adventure that was like promiscuity and drug dealing, doing something. I don't know.
Which is adventurous.
And
but also, it is not the entire world of adventure.
Judging, at the very least, I'm not judging promiscuity. And I'm also not judging addiction. Like, I'm not judging anything. Like, live your life and we're here to help. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you need help or want help. So like, but somehow I had a definition that didn't include like scuba diving in the Great Barrier Reef.
Right.
We're like climbing mountains and like doing
I don't even know.
clearly adventurous things. So this is what we're saying. This is a chance to do kind of a deep dive this season and figure out like, what stories are you telling? Maybe you can figure out where they came from. Maybe it doesn't matter. Like for some stories, it might matter. Some stories it might not. Like, does it really matter where I got that adventure? No.
Right. It's the letting go of it that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's learning to have that old story not matter. Recognize that someone else's fact is not, is really just fiction. And it's not a story that I have to listen to anymore. And I can write my own story.
Right.
And then figuring out what that looks like each day, and then taking it to the next step. And so, like you said, there are going to be times where, as I'm peeling back the onion, I am going to need to know who wrote that story or where I got it from. I'm going to need to do that to heal. But there are going to be times where we don't.
Yeah. And I think, and we need to wrap up, and I have some homework for you guys, but I do want to note that, like, I personally get caught in the weeds of like the why of it all. And there are times where it's just not helpful, where, as you're saying, Tovah, like, it just doesn't matter where it came from. What matters is what you do with it now. And I struggle personally. This is more undoing for me. I struggle with not knowing, like, okay, but why did this happen? And what's going on? And, because I hang on the idea of like, well, I don't want to repeat it, but also like, I just like, it's a way of not dealing with it by focusing on the why. And so it's just something to keep in the back of your minds. I do have some homework for you guys for the week. What I would love for all of our listeners out there to do is to get a journal or like a blank. It's back to school time. You can just go get a blank composition book.
Hush.
I
mean, first of all, the people who are listening to this are like, Rielly, school already started. And you and I are recording, and it's like, we haven't even gone on vacation yet. We're all confused by that statement.
But you can get the like 50-cent leftover composition book at, Walgreens or wherever, and have that and like right at the top of it, Unbecoming, right? And that is your journal for this season, because there is a lot of opportunity here for you all to change your lives and change them for the better. And that doesn't mean necessarily quitting your job, getting a divorce, and moving off to Fiji. Maybe it means like, maybe it does. I don't know. And I'm not judging. But, it could be like little tweaks here and there where you're like, I'm going to leave the house messy and I'm not going to worry about it because that's not a morality issue.
Or it could mean I'm going to leave the house not messy because I deserve to take some time for myself. Like,
any number of things. It's all going to be unique to you. And what I want is for you all to be prepared. Have your journal ready. What I would also suggest and hope that you all are willing to do is to take some time to jot down whatever this episode brought to mind. Like, did it make you think about, hey, am I doing this thing because I really believe it? Or did somebody like convince me at some point in my life that I am too serious, or that I'm like too silly, or I'm the class clown, or whatever? Like, take some time to make some notes on that to think about. You don't even have to do anything with it. Just write it all down. And then, let us know on social media if you are listening to the season and you're ready to go. You can tag us at Go Boldly Together. You can comment on our post and be like, I'm in. We want to hear from you. We want to know you're out there working on this right alongside with us, because it's a hard season and we don't want to do it alone. I want to know other people are working through it too. So the only other thing I will say is join our weekly women's circle. It is a great place to work through some of these things in more depth, in a safe environment where you can feel welcome and feel like you belong. So we would love to have you there. You can find out more about it on our website at goboldlyinitiative.com or on our social media at Go Boldly Together. And until next week, everyone, have a wonderful time undoing. We will talk to you all soon.
Thanks so much for listening to We Go Boldly podcast. We know you're busy and we love spending time with you.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. Head to Apple Podcasts right now to rate and review our show. While you're there, be sure to click that subscribe button.
Want more us time? Follow us on all the socials at Go Boldly Together.
Want even more us time? As in all the coaching pizzazz. Find us at goboldlyinitiative.com for all the info.
We will be back with more excitement, research, and deep thoughts next week.
Until then, keep on being the bold, brave, amazing people we know you already are.
The Power Moms Network, empowering moms to lift the world.